I read a whole lot of books this year, and the books that I have for you today are perhaps the best books that I've ever read, and certainly the best books that I've read this year. I picked these books specifically because they resonated with me the most. They impacted me the most. They, reverberate in my mind and affect the way that I see things to this day after I had read them. And I think that's a tier of books that certainly should be shared. And I read a lot of really good books, a lot of interesting books this year. Some honorable mentions are Dune, or Walden, or what is it? What's the Rilke book? It's Rilke's Book of Hours, like stuff like that. And these books are really, really good in their own right, but they just, for whatever reason, didn't hit me personally the same way that these books hit me. And here are the books I'm going to talk about today. I'm sure you saw the thumbnail. That's what it's going to be. But yeah, without further ado, let's get into these works. So I'm going to start off with William Blake because I think Blake is my new favorite author, or not my new favorite author. He's been so for a while, but I don't know if I've said it in a very long time. And to me, the thing that sticks out about Blake is his ability to put things that are so profound and so mythic into such a simplistic way, and do it on such a mythic scale, and put so much weight behind it. Because you read various other poets like Rumi or Gibran, or Rilke, or someone of that like, and it's very pleasant, it's very happy, but when Blake writes it, it feels like it was written thousands of years ago. It feels like it was written, and it was written with such veracity that's going to stand the test of time. And that's particularly what I like about Blake. His symbolism, his imagery is so dark and so profound and so deep that it just always sticks in my head. And the book that I want to talk about specifically today, because I can say, oh, well, all of William Blake's writings are great, but the best one that I have read so far is The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. I think it's going to be my favorite just because of its idea that it's centralized on, and that idea is the necessity for bad and evil, the necessity to marry both heaven and hell, because without either end of the spectrum, then there is no such thing as existence, and it's the push and pull, the give and take of life that gives any depth, any meaning. Think about it this way. If you had something good happen to you every single day of your life, it would no longer be good. It would no longer cease to have meaning, because you have nothing to compare it to. There's no idea of negativity. So in fact, you'd be bored of good things happening to you. It's like that scene in The Matrix where it's like the first Matrix was a perfect paradise where everything happened and people got bored and people were defeated by this idea. And it's that sort of illusion that we need to give depth and give meaning. And it's something that Gibran said as well. I'm not going to talk about the work, but he said it in The Prophet. Essentially, every sorrow deepens your joy. Every time you experience pain, it allows you to experience pleasure more. And I think this is what Blake is really trying to get at in the entire image of this work. But the part of The Marriage of Heaven and Hell that strikes out the most are the Proverbs of Hell. And essentially, in the Proverbs of Hell, Blake says things that would otherwise be heretical, but has a layer of truth in it. And one of the ones that sticks out the most is, it's something along the lines of, through excess we can live the life of a monk, and it's only when we experience great wealth and great fame that we can reject those things, because your whole life you won't understand how these things are negative. You won't understand how these things can destroy you. And it's only when we experience things that we can remove ourselves from the situation. It's only when we experience things that we know it's not good for us. We know it's pitfalls and downfalls. And it's such a interesting idea, and it's one that often isn't talked about. And Blake's writing is full of that. Perhaps my favorite line in the entirety of The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, the entirety of Blake's writing, is, "The mechanical mind could not hold a candle in the wind to the likes of Shakespeare or Dante. If they wrote 10,000 verses, it would not even pale in comparison to a singular work of these two great geniuses." And essentially what he's saying is, a man that has imagination is unbounded. A man that has imagination is not controlled by anything. And then, there's the particular quote that Aldous Huxley made very famous in his Doors of Perception, that if the doors of perception were cleansed, then man would see the world as it truly is, which is infinite, but instead he sees things through narrow chinks of his armor. And that quote just, I think it summarizes his entire belief system and his entire worldview. And I think certainly something to explore if you like the ideas of imagination, the ideas of endless human potential. But that leads us to the next thing, which is Jorge Luis Borges's fictions, or ficciones, depends on the edition you get. But just know you're in store for a great work of art when you read this book. And what makes Borges so interesting is that Borges is somebody that can pull from everything. He can pull a lot of stuff from his experience and his writings, and you get to tell he's just a man who lived a really, really, really just diverse life in the sense that he did everything and that he understood a lot of different things and his perspective was very vast. So he can pull from all these experiences in his different writing, and it goes to craft this world that seems so seamless, this world that seems so endless, and this world that seems so well lived in. And his greatest stories are written about stories that don't exist. And it's such a fun and novel concept. It's like a meta idea. It's like a meta joke, like making a joke about stand up while doing stand up. It's like that sort of layer of things, but not done in the cringy example that I used. But the first story in this book is perhaps one of the best things I ever read. It's Orbis, I think it's called Tertius Orbis, or something along the lines of that. It's basically he writes this commentary about an encyclopedia article that doesn't exist, about this society that doesn't exist, about a society that could create things through the human mind, that could create things through pure consciousness. And, it's just an exploration of these ideas that, for whatever reason, I'm super fascinated with it. And the entire time I'm reading this, I'm just completely engrossed in this thing. And I'm like, I really want to pick up this book that he's talking about, but it doesn't actually exist. And yeah, Borges is just really fun. It's just a really interesting read, and it's unlike anything else you'll ever pick up. So perhaps that's the reason why it resonated with me so much. And each story has its own kind of twist and turn. Each story has its own kind of feel, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. The last thing we have is from the collected works of Khalil Gibran is Sand and Foam. This book is so cool looking. I just had to say that. But Sand and Foam is interesting because it's a poem, but it's more closely aligned to aphorisms. And, perhaps the greatest part of the poem is the first line. Let me read it if I have it pulled up. Hold on. Sand and Foam 133. Because I can explain from my perspective what this is about, but I don't think it's going to quite do it justice. So let me just read you the first page of this, and you will know what I'm talking about. Because Sand and Foam is essentially Gibran's idea of experiencing life. Essentially, he's trying to show you that everything is in some way connected and everything is in some way necessity, because he talks about things as important as the infinite to things that are as important as, how to be a good host, how to be good to your guests, how to be a good person, and all things in between. And it's around 30 pages, and it's another work that I picked up and I didn't put down until I was finished. I am forever walking upon these shores, betwixt the sand and foam. The high tide will erase my footprints, and the wind will blow away the foam, but the sea and the shore will remain forever. Once I filled my hand with mist, then I opened it, and lo, the mist was a worm. And I closed and opened my hand again, and behold, there was a bird. And again I closed and opened my hand, and in its hollow stood a man with a sad face turned upward. And again I closed my hand, and when I opened it, there was naught but mist. But I heard a song of exceeding sweetness. It was but yesterday I thought myself a fragment quivering without rhythm in the sphere of life. Now I know that I am the sphere, and all life in rhythmic fragments move within me. Then say to me in their awakening, you and the world you live in are but a grain of sand upon the infinite shore of an infinite sea. And in my dream I say to them, I am the infinite sea, and all worlds are but grains of sand upon my shore. Only once have I been made mute. It was when a man asked me, who are you? The first thought of God was an angel. The first word of God was a man. Okay. And that's how it begins. And I think that says enough about this work, and I think that says enough about why it's one of my favorite works that I've ever read. And I'm just going to leave it there because I don't think I can do it any justice. I don't think I can talk about the depth or the power in these words. What I love so much about Gibran is that he is a man that in one sentence can bring you to tears, and in the next sentence make you feel extreme joy. And its ability to juxtapose the suffering and the happiness of life and show that they're all just the same essential emotion, that really just gives such a weight to his writing that is unlike anything else I've ever read. And I really urge you to pick up Gibran, Blake, Borges. These are all names that have really, really just changed the game when it comes to how I view writing and when it comes to how I view reading and the experience that you can have with reading. So hopefully this was inspiration to pick up any of these works. They're all tremendous. And with that said, I love you guys so much. Thank you guys so much. Peace out. I'll catch you in the next one. Thank you guys for all the support recently. It's been insane. If you want to pick up anything by me, any of the books, links in the description. If you want to get the stuff I write on a daily basis, join the school community. That's why I post it all. Peace out.